Hey, what is going on, my Shadowverse Masters? It's your boy here today, Dean from Burn 1, and I am finally doing, I was thinking, what type of content can I do? Deck profiles right now with set 2 coming out, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, I could go over my regional deck, but nobody cares that, new stuff's coming out. Set 2 decks, we've already done quite a few, and we need to do some more testing, get you guys those lists eventually. But we've had a lot of people be like, how do I prepare for a regional? And I myself have gone to a lot of regionals, and I thought I would be helping you guys today. And if you guys thought that I would give you an edited video, you are out of your mind. We get this really scuffed PowerPoint, but I imagine most people throw this on in the background. Don't look at the screen. If you want to look at the screen, look at it, but it's a scuffed ass PowerPoint, just so you know. Anyway, let's get into it. So, first, whenever we're prepping for a big event, we've got to do some things. And number one is we need to utilize our time efficiently. So if a format, let's say, is beginning for set 2 and you're doing this in like 2 weeks, right, 2 to 3 weeks, probably you don't want to be experimenting at locals. There's not a whole lot of time. Definitely just look at what the Japanese have been doing. But let's say that you were going to Chicago, right? Chicago was at the end of set 1. I think there's one more regional for set 1 coming up next week. You should have been using, since the game came out, time to experiment. You don't only need to play the best deck, but you need to play every single other deck to see if you have a way to angle shoot the meta. The more time you have, the more time you have to experiment. Just so you know, you have to do this and go into testing knowing what you want to see. If you're thinking, man, I feel like the dragon matchup would be easier if I have this card, right? Say, okay, friend, can you play dragon into me maybe 5 to 10 games in a row, and I'm going to have this card in, and I'm going to see, does this card actually do anything for me, or does it do nothing? And then after, a couple games, with Shadowverse, you definitely want to have like a high number of games due to the way that the game works. Like, right, like, was this a fluke that it did something? Does it actually do something more often than not? You got to kind of go into it knowing what you say. Probably 5 to 7 games is what you want to see to be able to fully feel it out. And I think the good way to do this is to discuss and think first. So, like, right, you look at a list and think, I played against Dragon once with this at locals 2 weeks ago, but I was dying to the Forte, and maybe, just maybe, if I include this card with Ward, or I include this heal, maybe that will be good. Okay, so then you get your friend over, and you say, let's play, and then after you get done playing, you discuss and think again, right? Like, you don't want to spend forever in chats. I know there's a lot of people, they'll get into a Discord call, and they will just play, or they'll discuss, and and they won't play, right? They won't sleeve up the cards, they'll just talk. Talking is not enough by itself. And another thing is, like, when you're trying to use your time efficiently, just try to find misplays. If you think, like, even if you've won, maybe your opponent, bricked out eventually, but maybe there was something you could have done cleaner. Try to identify that at the end of every game. Use every game as a learning experience. That's the important part of this. Okay. Next, we need to identify our skill level, right? This is going to be very important for deck selection. We need to be honest with ourselves. Are we Billy Break? Are we Joshua? I don't know. Does Joshua Smith deck build? I don't know. Are we these people that are the innovators? Are like if we come in and we've been cooking in the kitchen, do we sweep locals, or are we like at the 0-5 table? That's the question, right? But it's okay. We can improve. But if you're going to a big event, maybe we need to figure out where we're at. Maybe if you're not the best player, you don't want to be playing. Like, if you're newer to Shadowverse, you haven't been playing a ton, Forest ain't the deck for you. I'm just going to be honest. You can improve and eventually get good at Forest, but if you're preparing for a big event, you do want to choose a deck that's like relevant for your skill level, right? If you're playing Forest or you're playing Haven, you probably want to know every single card in the format. You want to know exactly what every deck can do and know how to utilize your hand, your life, the board. You need to be able to leverage all of this. If you're playing Dragon, you probably don't need to do a whole lot. So identifying the proper deck for your skill level, it's not this isn't like a thing against people. This is just more of like a thing that will help with your deck building. Because I know like sometimes you might be like, oh yeah, like I myself personally in Unlimited, I can't actually handle the APMs of whatever you're supposed to do with Artifact Portal. I myself struggle with that. So I myself, I think I'm pretty good at Shadowverse and Digital, but I know not to play Artifact Portal in Unlimited. And so it's being a little bit realistic about yourself. You can try to improve that, but I would never take like one of these decks to a bigger tournament, right? I would never, without a ton of practice before, I would never play Fairy Forest or like any of the forest combo decks in a big event. I might play something simpler like Loot Sword. I think Loot Sword's pretty easy. I'm sorry if some people don't play Digital. The big thing is like Forest and Haven are very skill intensive, but Dragon is pretty easy, and you can get a lot further with Dragon than you can with Forest while being newer to the game. So it is important to identify where you are as a player, because that is going to be one of the most important things before going into an event. Next, we've identified ourselves as a player. Now we need to identify the meta. So if we're in a new format, you look at Japan. Look at what people are saying online. Chances are people will be copying Japan. The average player is not an innovator. The average player is not a deck builder. It's just how it is. So that's the way it's going to be at the beginning. And then older formats are easier to read. So like Chicago, no, Chicago is wild. But right, we had Toronto, and then we have like these other things. So like we see like 50% Dragon. We see 50% Dragon again. We see another event, 50% Dragon. Chances are we're going to have 50% Dragon. We see that Haven, for instance, is getting very high consistent tops despite having lower player count. So like let's say there were 3 Havens and then 2 of them made top 3. Then there were I think like 1 or 2 Havens and it makes top 3 again. And we just see like Haven win an event when there's only like 2 of them. So we see like a very low representation of Haven. Maybe you think, okay, people might start to pick up that Haven's pretty good. So you think, okay, Dragon, Haven, and then there's some other stuff, but the other stuff's not doing too well. It might show up, like Rune might get a second or a first, and but it's not like converting as well as something like Haven has been. So expect usually like formats to slowly move. I do think that this video is not very relevant for set 1 or for like these first 2 tournaments because of how small the actual player counts are. I think that it's causing a lot of really weird things to happen. So this might be a video that you revisit before Springfest in the spring, where we're gonna hopefully have open tournaments. Whenever we have open tournaments, I think this is gonna be a lot more true. Right now, it's kind of the Wild West with the way the meta is developing. But if you play any other card game, I think you know this. Like, right, it takes something major for like the big meta decks to actually fully shift. And now that we've identified the meta, we need to figure out what we are going to be bringing. So we need to filter the decks that we are going to be testing. So meta reads and skill are heavy considerations. In the Dragon Haven format, you need one of 2 things. You either be playing Dragon because you think that like that is the best deck and that you don't have the technical skill to play like a super complicated deck, or a deck as like mechanically intensive, I think, as Haven. But then let's say that you think, oh man, Haven's doing really well in this meta, and Dragon is doing really well. Like you know that Dragon's not going to go down, but maybe Haven goes up a bit. Maybe like more people bring Haven, and Dragon goes 40%, Haven goes 30%. Do you want to read for the Haven? Because like, are you comfortable with the Haven mirror? Are you comfortable with playing Dragon into Haven? Because those are both considerations now that you have to make when deciding those 2. And maybe you've tested a lot, and maybe there's a deck that does good into both of them. For myself, that was Forest. I said that Forest was good into Haven and could go toe-to-toe with Dragon. It wasn't favored into Dragon, but it wasn't like unfavored into Dragon. If that makes sense. So read for that. But don't read for the read. Don't read for other people to be on a counter for the counter. Don't expect shifts to be that fast. And if a deck has low representation, do not tech for it. I think this is important. I've seen some people, they'd be like, oh, I lost to Aggro Abyss. Or I lost to Neutral Craft. Right? Like people will lose to a deck that's in their locals that if you look at like actual results and you look at actual things that people bring to tournaments, people aren't playing. There might be like maybe 2% of the meta is that deck. Probably not worth teching for. And even if there is, let's say that it's a tier 2 deck, like Aggro Abyss or Sword or something like that, and you have the option to tech for it, if teching for that hurts your matchup against the actual meta decks, I think that is almost never worth doing. It's always a mistake. So, yeah, definitely don't get caught up in teching for the tech, but definitely like tech for maybe a small meta shift based on previous results. And most importantly, before going to a big event, just accept your fate. A good mindset is important. You need... there's only so much you can do to prepare. I myself, like to keep a good mindset, after I've done testing and I've, turmoiled over my deck choice, what I like to do is maybe like a day or two before the tournament, just say, I'm not playing the game. I'm not playing the game. I've done all my prep up to this point. Like, what are you going to do? If you play test, like, let's say you play test the night before and your deck sucks, what are you doing? Are you going to swap decks? If you've spent 2 weeks before the event play testing, and then it's the day before, and suddenly in testing, you're getting your ass handed to you. But, like, up to that point, it was good. Like, right? Because, like, you've been testing this deck for 2 weeks. Go to the hotel the night before, and then you play test with some friends. And, like, I don't know, you're drawing bad, something bad mojo. Like, what's the best thing that can happen? The best thing that can happen, you can have a game that goes well. But, like, what happens if the game goes bad, right? And then you randomly last minute change to a deck that you're not actually versed on. You haven't been preparing on that, and that's not the best deck. I don't like psyching myself out the day before. Basically, try to think about that. And by the way, you'll probably lose. Most people do. Did you know that if Chicago, even in these small-ass events, there are 20 players, only 3 get to win? Think about that. 20 players, 3 get to win. Even there, it's like 15%. Bigger events, 200, 500 players, only X amount get to win, right? Whatever winning is, it's a minority of the players that get to do it. So just know that. And set goals for yourself. Be realistic. If you're new to the game, if you top 8, that's cool. Maybe set that as the goal. Maybe you need to go into an event. I myself, if things start to go bad, I say, as long as I don't end negative. 50% win rate plus is good. Top 8, always the goal. Actually, top 3, usually the goal. But first, top 8, and then from there, that. But that's like, I've played forever, and the first goal is always top 8. And then we set our goal, we notch it up after. But be realistic with the goals. Just know that it really doesn't matter what happens. The only thing you can do is prepare as best as you can, and then go from there. Yeah, I know this was some beginner stuff, but we've had people ask, and everyone's at a different point in their journey. So I thought I'd just throw this out there. If you like this type of content, let us know. We'll do some more beginner-friendly stuff. We plan on getting more deck profiles out later. But until next time, this is Dean signing out.